Hajji Hafiz Sayyīd Mohammed Abdullah Hassan was a Somali religious and patriotic leader, referred to as the Mad Mullah by the British. He established the Dervish State in Somalia that fought the 20-year Somaliland Campaign against British, Italian and Ethiopian forces. Youth Hassan was born in 1856 in the valley of Sayyīd. Some say he was born in Kirit in northern Somalia. At the time, this part of Somalia was a protectorate of the United Kingdom. Between 1884 and 1960, the area was known as British Somaliland. Hassan was the eldest son of Sheikh Abdul, who hailed from the Ogaden subclan of the Darad major clan. His mother, Shade, also a Somali, belonged to the Dul-Bathante clan. His great-grandfather, Sheikh Ishman of Badi, was a pious man of great repute who left his homeland slightly north of Kielefo along the Shabelle River Valley in what is now the Ogaden and migrated southwards to settle with the religious Somali community at Bardera along the Juba River. Hassan's grandfather, Hassan Nune, in turn, left his home and moved closer to the Dul-Bathante stronghold in northeastern Somalia. There, he founded several religious centers and devoted himself to the worship of Allah. Following in the footsteps of Hassan Nune, Hassan's father Abdul also led a religious life. Abdul married several Dul-Bathante women by whom he had about 30 children, of which Hassan was the eldest. Hassan's mother, Shade, came from the Aligeri sublineage of the Dul-Bathante clan, which was allied with the Ogaden. Hassan thus grew up among the Dul-Bathante pastoralists, who were good herdsmen and warriors and who tended and used camels as well as horses. Young Hassan's hero was his maternal grandfather, Shade Mogan, who was a great warrior chief. In addition to being a good horseman, by the age of 11, Hassan had learned the entire Quran by heart, and displayed all the qualities of a promising leader. He continued his religious education. In 1875, Hassan's grandfather died, which came as a shock. That same year, he worked as a Quranic teacher for 2 years. His thirst for Islamic learning was so intense that he left his job and devoted about 10 years to visiting many famous centers of Islamic learning, including Hara and Mogadishu and even some centers in Sudan. Hassan received education from as many as 72 Somali and Arab religious teachers. In 1891, upon returning home, he married an Ogadeni woman. 3 years later, along with 2 uncles and 11 other companions, some of whom were his maternal kin, Hassan went to Mecca to perform the Hajj. The party stayed there for 1.5 years and came under the charismatic influence of the newly developing Salihiyya order under the leadership of the great Sudanese mystic, Muhammad Salih. Hassan received initiation and very rigorous spiritual training under Salih. For this experience, Hassan emerged a changed man, spiritually transformed, shaken and overawed, but determined to spread the teachings of the Salihiyya order in Somalia. Religious mission. In 1895, Hassan returned to Berbera. The British considered Berbera merely Aden's butcher's shop, since they were only interested in getting regular supplies of meat from Somalia through this port for the British India outpost of Aden. Taking advantage of Britain's complacency, Emperor Menelik II of Ethiopia asked Ras Makonnen, the governor of his newly conquered Haraga province, to send armed bands to plunder and occupy Ogaden politically. The British withdrew from this area of the territory in Somalia. In Berbera, Hassan could not succeed in spreading the teaching of the Salihiyya order due to the hostility of the local Qadiriya inhabitants. They did not like him criticizing their eating cat, gorging on the fat of sheep's tail and following the traditional Qadiriya order. In 1897, he left Berbera to be with his Dul-Bathante kinsman. On the way, at a place called Jamul, he met some Somalis who were being looked after by a Catholic mission. When he asked them about their clan and parents, the Somali orphans replied that they belonged to the clan of the fathers. Quote, this reply shook him, for he felt that the Christian overlordship in his country was tantamount to the destruction of his people's faith. In 1899, some soldiers of the British Armed Forces met Hassan and sold him an official gun. When questioned about the loss of the gun, they told the superiors that Hassan had stolen the gun from them. On the 29th of March 1899, the British vice-consul wrote a very stern and insulting letter to him accusing his camp of stealing the gun and asking him to return it immediately. This enraged Hassan and he sent a very brief and curt reply refuting the allegation. Hassan's attention had been focused on the Ethiopian invaders of Somalia, but this incident brought him into conflict with the British as well. The British Ethiopian Emperor Melik II and a small numbers of Somalis then joined together to crush Hassan's dervish movement. Origins of armed struggle. In several of his poems and speeches, Hassan said that the British have destroyed our religion and made our children the children and the Christian Ethiopians in league with. The British were bent upon plundering the political and religious freedom of the Somali nation. He soon emerged as the champion of his country's political and religious freedom, defending it against all Christian invaders. To his supporters, he issued a religious ordinance that any Somali who did not accept his goal and would not join his Allāh Brotherhood would be considered as non-Muslims. He acquired weapons from the Ottoman Empire, Sudan, and other Islamic countries. He appointed his ministers and advisors in charge of different areas or sectors of Somalia and gave a clarion call for Somali unity and independence. At this time Hassan organized his warriors. His dervish movement had an essentially military character, and the Dervish State was fashioned on the model of a Allāh Brotherhood. It had a rigid hierarchy and robust centralization. Hassan threatened to drive the Christians into the sea, and he committed the first attack by launching a major military offensive with his 1,500 dervishes, equipped with 20 modern rifles, on the British soldiers stationed in the region. Hassan sent one of his men to Yemen in disguise for reconnaissance activities to report on the new aeroplanes' preparedness for attack. He sent his emissaries all over the country appealing for Somali people to join his movement, and many responded to him enthusiastically. Ethiopia, Britain and Italy. In 1900, an Ethiopian expedition sent to arrest and kill Hassan looted a large number of camels of the Mohammed Ogaden sub-clan. In answer to his appeal, Hassan attacked the Ethiopian garrison at Jijiga on the 4th of March of that year and successfully recovered all the looted animals. This success emboldened Hassan and enhanced his reputation. In June, 3 months later, Hassan raided the British-protected northern Somali clans of Idagale and Isaac and confiscated about 2,000 camels. He gained great prestige in recovering the looted stock from the Ethiopians, and he used it along with his charisma and powers of oratory to improve his undisputed authority among the Ogaden. To harness Ogaden enthusiasm into final commitment, Hassan married the daughter of a prominent Ogaden chieftain and in return gave his own sister, to Sheikh Adbal, to Abdi Muhammad Vale, a notable Muhammad Sabir elder. However, soon angered by his autocratic rule, Hassan Hasid al-Iljech, a Muhammad Sabir chieftain, plotted to kill him. The news of the plot leaked to Hassan. He escaped, but his prime minister and maternal uncle, or Abbas, was killed. Some weeks later, Mohammed Sabir sent a peace delegation of 32 men to Hassan, but he had all the members of the delegation arrested and killed. Shocked by this, Mohammed Sabir sought the help of the Ethiopians and the dervish withdrew to Nagal. Hassan patched up with the Dalbatante temporarily by paying huge blood monies. This frightened the British-protected North Somali pastoralists. Towards the end of 1900, Ethiopian Emperor Melik proposed a joint action with the British against the dervish. Accordingly, British Lt. Col. Eric John Eagle Swain assembled a force of 1,500 Somali soldiers led by 21 European officers and started from Burko on the 22nd of May 1901, while an Ethiopian army of 15,000 soldiers started from Hara to join the British forces intent on crushing the 20,000 dervish fighters. During 1901 and 1904, the dervish army inflicted heavy losses on their enemies, the Ethiopians, the British, and the Italian forces. His successes attracted to his banner even Somalis who did not follow his religious beliefs. On the 9th of January 1904, at the Jidawale Plain, the British commander, General Charles Egerton, killed 1,000 dervish. This defeat forced Sayyīd and his remaining men to flee to Majeerteen country. Around 1910, in a secret meeting under a big tree later nicknamed Angel Tail WAA, about 600 dervish followers decided to stop following Sayyīd due to his perceived high-handedness. The departure weakened, demoralized and angered Sayyīd, and it was at this juncture that he composed his most famous poem entitled The Tree of Bad Counsel. Pushed to the south. During his campaign to gather fighting men in southern Somalia, Sayyīd Mohammed received enormous support from the Marian population, securing forces from the hinterland in northern Somalia to the length of the entire Juba region in southern Somalia, from Serenli near Bardera to the coast. Sayyīd Mohammed Abdullah Hassan's own Ogaden clansmen weren't entirely on his side when the Marians saw the importance of siding with the nationalist leader in ridding themselves of the colonial powers. From Serenli to Dolo, the second arm of the Marian wasn't happy with giving the British a second front for confrontation. The peaceful communities between Bardera and Dolo to the Tana River in East Africa were long established before the late 19th century uprising of Sayyīd Mohammed Abdullah Hassan. The Marian Aguri were content and basically wanted to herd the livestock from the grasslands of Juba to Tana River peacefully, where they had settled at the time. The Marian Galti from the north and central Somalia were antagonistic. Northern Gedo of Abdel, who was at the time in concert with the Aguri, was content with the status quo. Consolidation. During 1910 to 1914, Sayyid's capital moved from Ilig to Taler in the heart of Nugal, where he built 3 garrison forts of massive stonework and a number of houses. He built a luxurious palace for himself and kept new guards drawn from outcast clans. By 1913, he had dominated the entire hinterland of the Somali peninsula by building forts Jildali and Mirashi in Warsangali country, Adverda and Karehi in the Ogaden, and Beledweyne in southern Somalia. On the 9th of August 1913, at the Battle of Dulmad Aba, a dervish force raided the Haba Yunus clan near Burko and killed or wounded 57 members of the 110-man Somaliland Camel Constabulary. The dead included the British officer who commanded the constabulary, Colonel Richard Caulfield. Hassan memorialized this action in his poem simply entitled The Death of Richard Caulfield. In the same year, the Dervish sacked Berbera. In 1914, the Somaliland Camel Corps was founded as an expanded and improved version of the constabulary. A British force was gathering against the dervishes when they were interrupted by the outbreak of World War I. Among the British officers deployed was Adrian Cartender White, who lost an eye during the campaign, and Hastings Ismay, a staff officer who was later Winston Churchill's chief military advisor. By 1919, despite the British having built large stone forts to guard the passes to the hills, Hassan and his armed bands were at large, robbing and killing. The vision of Sayyīd and his followers in Juba was similar to that of people in Sudan and Egypt when the Ottoman Sultanate was retreating from those other Northeast African territories. Defeat. In the beginning of 1920, the British struck the Dervish settlements with a well-coordinated air and land attack and inflicted a stunning defeat. The forts of Hassan were damaged and his army suffered great losses. They hastily fled to Ogaden. Here, again with the help of his patriotic poetry and charisma, he tried to rebuild his army and accomplish the coalition of Ogaden clans, which made him a power in the land once again. Death. On the 21st of December 1920, Hassan died of influenza at the age of 64. His grave is believed to be somewhere close to Imi town of the Somali region of Ethiopia. However, the exact spot of the Sayyid's grave is unknown, a matter that has concerned and occupied the Somali people. However, in the middle of 2009, the Somali Regional State Administration expressed that they will exhume the remains of Mohammed Abdullah Hassan and rebury him in his old castle at Imi. Although most individuals who knew the exact location of the Hassan's tomb are dead for a long time now, the Regional Information Minister Mr. Guled Kaso told on VOA Somali section interview that very few senile individuals who can reveal the details of the Hassan's grave may be alive, making the region's search efforts attainable. The Somali region of Ethiopia is trying to sample DNA tests to determine whether the remains they found in a graveyard at Jindia could be that of Sayyid Mohammed Abdullah Hassan. In popular culture, the documentary film The Parching Winds of Somalia includes a section on the Dervish struggle and its leader Mohammed Abdullah Hassan. The historic romance novel Ignorance is the Enemy of Love by Farah Muhammad Jama'ul has a dervish protagonist called Kalimux, who is part of an ill-fated love story and fights against the British, Italians and Ethiopians in the Horn of Africa. A 1983 film entitled A Somali Dervish was directed by Abdul Qadir Ahmed said. In the Law and Amp Order, Criminal Intent episode Loyalty, references are made to the dervishes and the leader. The episode also features a character purported to have been descended from Mohammed Abdullah Hassan. In 1985, a 4-hour and 40-minute Indian-produced epic film by filmmaker Salah Ahmed entitled The Somalia Dervishes went into production. With a budget of $1.8 million, it included an actual descendant of Hassan as its star, and featured hundreds of actors and extras. In the popular comic book series Corto Maltese, the protagonist travels to the Horn of Africa during the dervishes' battle against the British, and witnesses the former power storm a British fort. During these travels, he develops a long-term friendship with a dervish warrior named Kush, who subsequently features in several other of Corto's adventures around the world.